Hello and welcome to From the Be All End. I'm Andrew Greaves. We are back, myself, Darren Bentley, and Paul Woodhouse, reporting for pre-season training a little earlier than the rest of the squad. I don't know what that says about the shape we're in. I think I'm probably about a stone heavier than when the season finished, so I'm definitely not looking forward to Gaffer's Day or the pinch test. But Woody and Daz, how are we? We enjoyed not much of a summer, is there? I mean, it doesn't feel like that long since the season ended, and here we are again. The players are due back in not too long. The Club World Cup is going on in America. Woody, what's your summer been like?
I mean, it's just starting. I mean, I've just checked the dates, and yeah, it's Thursday, June the 19th, isn't it? It's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year escapade, this football lark nowadays, isn't it? So we better not complain. Be careful what you wish for. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Daz, I know we were all talking on the WhatsApp group about the FIFA Club World Cup, and I think it's probably fair to say that it's passing certainly the gang of us this side of the Atlantic by a little bit. I did tune in for the Chelsea game the other night. That was quite interesting. But have you wanted a rest from football? I know it's difficult for you working at Everton. I mean, football is your day job. But have you tried to have a rest from football in preparation for the new season?
I have not looked at football since the last home game of the season. You'd be glad to know. Yeah, you're right. Working in the industry, it is all-encompassing anyway, and this new stadium at Everton is taking a lot of my time up, but that's not really the football itself. That's more the infrastructure of football. But yeah, I have completely turned off from football, and I will not turn on again. Well, put it this way, I turned on again last Wednesday for the fixtures. I turned off again from football when I saw the fixtures.
Yeah,
that's enough said.
Exactly. Yeah, well, let's start with the fixtures. I mean, that old adage is we have to play everybody home and away, etc., etc. But Woody, I mean, you want the cards to be dealt in a certain way, don't you? And that first. People talk about the first 5 fixtures, but I think fixture number 6 is Manchester City. So let's talk about the first 6 fixtures. What are we winning in that run, and where are we getting a shock? Is the shock that we lose to Sunderland and we don't get any points out of that first 6? What's your kind of take on that start that Scott Parker's side have got?
Well, in one respect, it's obviously quite easy, seeming where everybody finished in the first 3. But there's never an easy trot of games, is there? Yeah. We try and kid ourselves that there are these little periods we like to start off well, or we like to get the hard stuff out of the way first, whatever it is. You've just got to kind of be ready, get a little bit of luck on your side, and roll with it, haven't you? I don't think necessarily we'll go into it like we did under Vince and completely blow everything up and say, let's have a do with like a load of untested kids. We won't necessarily try and hamper ourselves this time round as much as we did last time round. But it's going to be difficult no matter what, isn't it? It's going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and Daz, there was some Opta kind of ranking of easiest starts, and we had the 4th easiest start. Now, that is obviously due to the fact that our first 2 away games, which are either side of the Sunderland home game, are Spurs, who finished 17th, and Manchester United, who finished 16th. Now, given the fact that Thomas Frank doesn't tend to start reigns at clubs very well, even taking that into consideration, you cannot see Spurs and Man United finishing 16th and 17th this coming season, can you? Especially with, certainly some of the transfer business that United have done and are going to do. It's all a bit, I don't know, it's all a bit bullshit, isn't it, statistics like that? I mean, it's a difficult start, in it? First 2 away games, Spurs and United.
We can sugarcoat it as much as we want, and Opta can sugarcoat it as much as they want. It is the start from hell. I'll tell you. I mean, we know the Premier League. It's a relentless beast, the Premier League. And even when you get a so-called easy spell of games, that's usually 2 games somewhere in the middle. But those first 4 games of Tottenham, Man United, Man City, and you mentioned the 6th game, the 7th game's Villa away. Yeah. Those first 4 away games are, dare I say it, they're almost write-offs. Yeah. And I know Scott Parker's pragmatism will come into play, and will be a far tougher beast to break down, I think, than we were under Vincent Kompany. But we're playing superpowers now. We are playing superpowers week in and week out. And already the Sunderland game at home, stupidly as it sounds, is the 2nd game of the season. Sounds like a massive game, because if we don't beat Sunderland, we could well end up going into October with precious few points on the board. I think it's a start from hell, but this is the Premier League. This is what we're up against. I mean, it's all about the top six and everybody else, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And you talk about the kind of the beasts you are up against, big beasts. I mean, I think a lot of talk last season was there's no real shit teams in the Premier League anymore, is there? Apart from the sides who come up.
Yeah, apart from us.
Essentially, the last two seasons. But you've kind of your Brentfords who you think might get sucked in, your Palacers, your Brightons almost, your Wolves, your Evertons, dare I say, your West Hams. They all now are, some of them still aren't great sides, but they've just got that little bit of extra now. Is there anything, Woody, in terms of, Brentford obviously losing Thomas Frank and some of their players, Wolves being pillaged, West Ham being West Ham. Is there a glimmer of hope there that actually, whilst next year's shocks might not be Man United and Spurs, flirting with relegation, but not really, that some of these teams who we've come to see moving on to that next level, and don't forget, there's a few sides having to juggle European campaigns as well, and we know what that's like. Is there a glimmer of hope there that, some of these, lesser teams might suddenly get sucked back into relegation dogfights?
Well, there has to be, hasn't there? Otherwise, we've got nothing to talk about. But yeah, you can see there is potential with Brentford. We're looking at the likes of the Brentfords and the Wolves of the world, aren't we? And we're saying, well, if we just spunk an extra 200 million on, a couple more players, we're in that group of players, that group of teams, aren't we? And conversely, while we might have to spend a little bit more to achieve that, they only have to go through a bad transition, such as a bad new manager losing a core of their players, and they've got to do it again, and they haven't necessarily been tested in that regard. So yeah, there should be sides that we're looking at targeting over the course of the season. Whether that means that they will come down to our level, I've absolutely no idea. But yeah, we should target that, shouldn't we?
Yeah, definitely. And Daz, a little bit obviously about Everton working there and what have you. How much and this sometimes affects teams, doesn't it? How much will the move to the Benny Hill David Dickinson Stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock there cause Everton a little bit of perhaps discomfort, shall we say? Oh, you're just on mute.
I think there's almost like a renewed optimism down there at the minute. This almost feels like there's a line being drawn under the previous era, and the previous ground's gone now. It almost feels like there's a fresh start for everybody. I think that's the supporters down there. They're a lot more optimistic about the season. They still need to bring some players in, but that will develop as the summer goes on. I think the hope is they'll move into that new stadium, which is a magnificent stadium, by the way. I can't wait for the Burnley fans to see that, although it's going to be a Wednesday in March, but that's another story. But I think you look at it, I mean, Everton were a side that perennially in the last few years have struggled. Yeah. They've never got relegated. No. They're the sort of sides we're up against now who are battle-hardened at the lower end of the leagues. And there might be some imponderables. Manchester United, we can all see Ruben Amorim ended up back in Portugal within 12 months. And United could well be as big a mess next year as they are this season. Yeah. But even as big a mess as they were this season, they were comfortably safe. Tottenham aren't going to be as bad again. You are looking at the Brentfords, the Brightons, the West Hams, dare I say, the Palaces have had a great season. But Bournemouth have just had the best Premier League season finish. Yeah. It's... I'm sounding like the harbinger of doom here, but I can't honestly say I'm looking forward to the new season. I'm looking forward to the sort of seeing the great players at Burnley again. I'm looking forward to the atmosphere as being incredible and being on Match of the Day on a Saturday night, although probably a lot of the games will be on Sunday next year because of the European teams. Yeah. So there's a lot to like about the Premier League, but there's an awful lot to like about the Championship, and I'm going to miss that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll be back.
Let's kind of get a bit more upbeat then, Woody. I mean, we've lost Egan Riley.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We've lost Egan Riley. Josh Brownhill's still not signed a new deal. James Trafford looks like he's going. But no, in all seriousness, on the kind of transfer front, I mean, we've often talked about getting business done early. We talked at the back end of last season the importance of securing some of those players who helped get us up. We're talking Fleming, Bashir Humphries, Edwards, and Jadon Anthony. We seem to be kind of getting linked with players of a certain profile. There's a lad from Lazio who I'm not even. I did Google how to pronounce his name a little bit earlier. I've gone and forgot it. We've got Hartman from Feyenoord at fullback. There looks to be a kind of a certain type of, or certainly a position that the club are looking to strengthen. Is the worry at the minute that none of them appear to be strikers, as in out and out strikers? I think the lad from Lazio is classed as a forward but plays more out wide.
It's a funny one, isn't it? We're stuck in this idea of having a quality number 9, and it's how much does that actually cost? We're not, if we can find someone who's going to score us 15 goals in the Premier League and keep us up for 15 to 30 million, then I'm pretty sure everybody else has found that fella as well. There's far better sides with far better, piggy banks than us screwing the pooch, blowing anything between 70 and 90 million on complete muppets. So it's one of those, isn't it? Up front, it's a definite imponderable. But yeah, we know where we need to strengthen. I think it's been nice not to have the tumultuous nature of the last Premier League effort, and when we came down last season, there seems to be a little bit more stability, but that doesn't necessarily account for the fact that we know that Trafford's probably going to go. We're probably going to lose Steve and whatnot, and there's probably still quite a bit of time left, isn't there, for a few incomings and outgoings, and so I think this will be a slightly different conversation in a month or two.
Yeah, and Daz, I think we've often been surprised at how cheaply players get to leave Burnley Football Club. It looks like we're kind of holding firm on Trafford with Newcastle. There's not been any links really for Esteve, and Esteve has spent most of the summer, pretty much, nailing his colours to the mast, quite literally, with some up the Clarets graffiti in America. I think I'd have been a bit more, a bit less nervous had he got his arse tattooed like Barnsley. But, it does feel like we're actually kind of going, yeah, you know what? There is a price for everybody, but we ain't just going to let Trafford go for 30 million when we think he's worth 40 million. Now, that might change as we get nearer to deadline day, but are you heartened by the fact that if we do let players go, it's going to be for a fair price and we're not going to just, sell the family silver for cheap just to make a quick buck?
I'm heartened by a few things. I'm heartened by our recruitment, which I think has been pretty good in recent years. By and large, there's always been anomalies in there, but so I'm heartened by that. I'm heartened by the fact that whenever players have left Burnley recently, and this is a radical change from past years, a lot of the times in past years, when players left Burnley, they went downhill. We never heard from them again. Anyone who goes from Burnley now tends to go up, and we sell them for decent money. We're still, I suppose we're still in the cheaper end of the Premier League in terms of getting pillaged, and that's one thing that I think the chairman, for the faults that he might have, I don't think he will be. I think he's pretty resilient in the fact that Trafford, for instance, is only going to go when the money's right.
Yeah.
Even though James Trafford's probably kicking down the door every day saying, that's a contract come yet, boss.
Yeah.
So I think I'm heartened by those things, and I'm heartened by the fact that I don't think we'll see a mass exodus this summer, which we did under Vincent. Woody there alluded to the fact that Steve might go. I'm not sure Steve will go. I think Steve will probably be okay. I think we'll probably lose Trafford. We've definitely lost Egan Riley. So we've lost 2 of that back 5 to start with that will need replacing, because I don't think Worrell is a man. I think there's definitely a centre back.
There's a bit of lack of pace there, isn't there?
Yeah, Bayer's got to come back in, of course, but we're still a centre half light. We're looking at full-backs, of course, and we'll come on to transfers in a little bit. And the strike force for me is the one that needs really reinforcing. But the 4 lads that came in on loan last season have re-signed. We've got the nucleus of a side there that packed up 100 points in the Championship. That might not be good enough for the Premier League, but it gives you a foundation. It gives a manager with a bit more pragmatism and a bit less, what's the word I'm looking for, chaos than Vincent Kompany, a chance to sort of build foundations from. So, yeah, I've changed my tune. I'm not hard.
I'm going to say, you basically went from,
you're all over the place.
Everything's going to hell to now kind of like get the Champions bus ready.
I'll still be tuning when we get 25 points, but I think there are the shoots of hopefully something better there than we had 2 years ago, which was just, let's face it, a shitstorm.
Yeah. And Woody, Scott Parker's often talked about his rehabilitation. He's not quite used that word, but I think obviously his experience at Bournemouth was quite damaging. He obviously went to Belgium and that lasted 12 games, I think it was. And he took that time out. I think he spent some time with Thomas Tuchel and going round and seeing coaches. Do you think he will approach the Premier League in a different way to perhaps how he may have done with Bournemouth and Fulham? And do you think that combined with, we have been full of praise for the way we think the chairman has adapted in certain parts, and Darren touched upon the recruitment side. Do you think that, not giving Scott Parker the keys to the kingdom, but actually appointing someone with a lot more pragmatism than Vincent, actually gives us that solid foundation, before we've kicked a ball? Whereas I think we all probably looked at going into that Man City game and that first game of the season, we saw that team like, and we kind of went, I think we might be in trouble here.
I mean, I sincerely hope so. It does feel like we're trying to build on something as opposed to abstractly building this thing. And I hope Scott Parker feels that he's got the backing of the chairman and the club, because we are that type of a club, aren't we? We don't tend to throw managers out with the bathwater. They tend to leave us more regularly than we leave them, kind of thing. And it's one of those that I think he has something to prove in the Premier League after you said, Bournemouth and Fulham. And I think Burnley is going to be a club that affords him that opportunity. And I hope that works out as well as it possibly can do, because I think there is something that he's built. There's something that we're building on. And I'd love to see him be successful in the Premier League, and I'd love to see him be successful with Burnley in the Premier League, whatever that looks like.
He's one of our big assets, I think, going forward. He's one of our big assets. We know he hasn't got that sort of. He doesn't go up and down. He's not like an Ange Postecoglou who's arguing with the press 1 minute and then saying I win something in my second season or the next. He's not an Amorim who goes into his shell. It seems to me he's on a level, even keel. And I think that's a real positive for this club. Nothing will get to him. Nothing will get on top of him. He'll just keep on going.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to kind of transfers. I don't know if it's just me, but I find the obsession with bringing back former players really, really odd. Like, I know journalists get a little bit lazy, so we've got obviously linked with Harwood Bellis. I mean, Teller is the constant one for being linked. We've been linked with Michael Keane. Somebody says, Ingsy's leaving West Ham and Cornet is available. It's like, Woody, tell me I'm not just being a miserable bastard. Tell me it's weird, isn't it, that we're obsessed with, let's get Phil Kavanagh back.
Exactly. Phil Kavanagh and Assignon down that right hand side. Bloody hell.
What's Adi Akinbaye doing these days?
Yeah.
Mental, isn't it?
No, we are obsessed with that shit, aren't we? And I mean, I look on the Twitters, and I don't tend to see other clubs doing it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just something slightly incestuous with us. But it's like, let it go, for God's sake. If I hear Danny Ings ever mentioned again, his legs went 5 years ago. It would have been. I mean, he'll struggle at Wrexham if he ever goes there. It's just see who Wrexham are after, and then whoever played at Burnley, and away you go. But it's no. I mean, just give it up. Just give it up.
But on that, Daz, you mentioned a centre half. Would you have Michael Keane back, because he's due to leave Everton, I think, on July 1st, isn't he?
I can pop him in the boot anytime I'm coming home from Everton. Yeah, absolutely. I would have him back in a heartbeat. I think he has his faults. Keno, Everton fans will tell you that he throws one in every now and again. But when we had him at our place, he was an absolute Rolls Royce in a centre back.
Oh, it was impeccable, wasn't it?
Why would you not have Michael Keane back? Absolutely, I'll have him back. And by the way, if Trafford's going to Newcastle, we'll have Popey back as well.
Yeah.
I think they're the two that I can get behind. I'm kind of. Pope is one that I think is just an absolute no-brainer. I mean, I think the feeling is, from the Trafford camp, that he will only go somewhere if he's guaranteed to be number one. Now, I think Newcastle are obviously playing the whole kind of, we want him and Pope to compete. But he will have one eye on the World Cup next year. Now, he's pretty much guaranteed a squad place. But I think Tuchel has said that he would, he wants a goalkeeper who's playing European football. Now, if Trafford goes to Newcastle, we could see a sea change. Not saying he'll drop Pickford straight away, but it could be the handing over the baton if Pickford doesn't have a great season and Trafford goes somewhere plays European football. But yeah, I think and Popey obviously will have probably given up on an England recall, but he certainly won't want to. He certainly won't want to sit on the bench, will he? Would he? I mean, he
Oh no.
looks to be the kind of keeper that a promoted side, whether it's us or Leeds United, I can't see him going Sunderland, but he may do. It's almost the perfect keeper for a promoted side, isn't he?
Oh,
Nick
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I do take it back, like you guys have just said about, Pope and even Keane to a lesser extent. But yeah, you can't imagine, neither of those two want to be at Newcastle being number two, do they? Both of them want to be a number one. So either sort something out. Because I don't object to Trafford going as long as it's at the right price, and I'd be extremely happy if we let him go for a decent chunk of change and got Nick Pope for a reasonable fee coming the other way, or some kind of swap deal. That would be a fantastic bit of business for us. Fantastic.
People will see that as a backward step, won't they? That's the only thing. But
yeah,
yeah.
But wearing Nick Pope, you're a goalkeeper. You play in one position. There's only 20 clubs. It's not like you're a versatile player who can play in 4 or 5 positions. So you almost have to, lay your hat where it lands, so to speak.
Yeah. How old is he now, Nick Pope? 31,
32, will he, Pope?
Yeah, 32 maybe. So he's still got
it's not geriatric, is it? It's not old.
Not for a goalkeeper, no.
Tom Eaton's leaving Man United as well.
I think he goes into the box of the weird links kind of See what Mike Conroy's up to. See if he's still working for Mizuno Golf in Australia. But yeah, just looking at kind of who else we've been linked with. We've been linked obviously with Lazio winger, and I am going to get his pronunciation. It's apparently Loom Chowner is how you pronounce it. I know nothing about him, I have to be honest. I think he played for the under-21s recently, French under-21s the other night, and set a goal up. We've been linked with him. We've been linked with Hartmann, who's a fullback from Feyenoord, and we've been linked with a Bundesliga 2 goalkeeper, a guy called Weiss, who we think is going to come in perhaps as an understudy to whoever the first choice goalkeeper is. But Darren, I mean, I know we've got the Club World Cup going on, and we had that weird mini window when a few players were able to sign for Club World Cup teams. It doesn't feel like the transfer window's really got going yet, has it? And we are being starved a little bit of links so far.
That's the way it happens most seasons now, though, Greavesy, isn't it? Unless you've got a shed load of cash that you can throw on the table and get a deal done early. There's so much pragmatism and brinksmanship goes on in the transfer window now, and a lot of those deals will last up until the sort of pre-season and beyond. We lost half our squad after the Luton game, didn't we?
Yeah.
Last season, so that doesn't surprise me at all. And unless you're a connoisseur of European football, and let me tell you something, I am definitely not that man. Some of these players, I mean, I just literally haven't heard of him. My lad's heard of some of them because he plays FIFA, and he'll go, "Oh, he's a good player." No, son, he's a good player on the computer.
Yeah,
he doesn't mean he's a good player on the grass.
Exactly.
But you've got to take him with a pinch of salt and see what comes out the other end. We've not done too badly, have we? In our recruitment of these sort of called lesser names that have come in recent years, and you can Clarets, the Vitinhos in this world, and Matsons, and a lot of people like that have come in. The recruitment team have done largely, I think, a really good job in pre-season. So you put your faith in them, and we see what the end result is. But no very big horse, please.
Yeah, is he still a Burnley player? I can't. He signed for Ajax. You do wonder, don't you?
Possibly.
On those.
Yeah.
We did ask for a couple of questions. We asked for questions on Twitter and got an absolute shed load. One person did mention Amdouni. Obviously had a relatively successful spell out at Benfica. I think he scored plenty of goals and made plenty of assists. Perhaps didn't play quite as much. There was kind of a slightly cryptic message. There's a lot I could say, but all I'm going to say is thanks to the fans, etc. Woody, I think we've talked about Amdouni before, and the messages he got from Burnley players when he was leaving, they all seem to be along the lines of one of the good guys, etc., etc. Is he somebody you'd welcome back into the fold? I know if I ask Chris Borden this question, I'd probably get a different answer. But
Yeah.
is he somebody you would, again, in a Scott Parker side, and he did score, didn't he? I think in one of Parker's first 2 games. Is he somebody you can see fitting into a Parker system?
Good question. Yes, I think so. I think he's got a little bit more about him. He plays off. He can do a little bit of a false nine type of thing. But like we've been saying, he's not necessarily the guy up front that we're necessarily looking for. Oh, it's like how many shortish, quickish, tricky blokes across that front three do we really need? And I don't know whether we obviously don't know whether we've seen the best of him. Obviously, we didn't during the company era, and we only saw that very brief cameo for the Championship. So I think it comes down to wage bill as much as anything else. Is he taking a wage of a far better, more established player who can do a job elsewhere? But I wouldn't object to him coming back by any stretch. I just don't want to see him sat there taking up quite a big chunk of change when we know we need it elsewhere.
You need creativity in your side, and creativity costs you a lot of money. And right now we have somebody in the camp in Amdouni who is a creative player, who benefits from a year in Benfica, having had probably you would say an average stroke above average season at Burnley in the Premier League, but scoring some goals. So I'm like Woody, I'd be more than happy to give him a go, because otherwise the answer is you get rid of him and you spend 50 million quid on another creative midfielder who striker who you don't know what he's going to be like. At least he's got a bit of form.
Yeah. And does Josh Brownhill's future, because he's still not signed that deal, and there's lots of rumours that the deal has been inked and they're waiting to announce it, etc. Does his departure perhaps open up that role, that kind of coming late into the box, being that kind of third man? Does he then almost take on that Brown? I don't think he's the same kind of player in terms of his work rate, in terms of perhaps his harrying and things like that. But does that leave a bit of a gap, which perhaps even Hannibal fills that defensive part of the gap, the harrying gap, but Amdouni is the guy who perhaps is there where Brownhill was, 15 times last season, picking up the pieces around the penalty spot, around the edge of the area and scoring goals. Is that the way you get the best out of Zeki Amdouni?
Maybe. I mean, the number 10 role is one that Hannibal can potentially play. We've got Amdouni in the camp again now. The issue I have with Josh Brownhill, and it's still a similar issue somewhere with Amdouni, is been there, done that. In the Premier League, and Josh, and I love Josh to bits. Not sure in the Premier League, Josh Brownhill in centre midfield up against some of these Galacticos is quite the answer we need. That's where you probably need to spend your money.
Yeah. Would you be sorry to see Josh Brownhill go?
All day. But I don't think he had a great season in the Premier League.
Does he then get into your side? So you obviously upset to see him go. There might be kind of we all have emotional ties with certain players, but does he earn his place in your starting 11 because he signs a new contract?
Big question mark. I think there's a big question mark over that triumvirate of Josh Cullen. Well, the three Joshes. I love all three of them, but Josh Laurent in the Premier League, that we're tossing a coin there, aren't we? Josh Brownhill, we've seen it in the Premier League, and he wasn't quite at that level last time. Josh Cullen, maybe less so. Josh has got a lot of international experience as well. So that's a big area for me, I think, where we need somebody in there who's of a real calibre. That's where you spend your money, I think.
Yeah. Woody, just sticking with that kind of midfield area, I mean, one player who we perhaps didn't think would be the player, he's Hannibal, isn't it? I mean, are you kind of going into next season thinking, you know what, actually, I think Hannibal, post his sending off for the stamp, proved himself. I mean, before that, I think he was nigh on useless. I mean, a busy idiot, I called him a few times. But since then, something changed in his demeanour, in his kind of persona, in his everything, his discipline. Was there enough in that back end of last season, that second half of the season, to make you go, you know what, this lad can finally fulfil his potential at the top level?
I hope so, and I agree with your assessment. I also think that I think, was it the League Cup, or was it a league game on the turf where he just ran us ragged for United?
Yeah,
he took the piss. And if he can, yes, it's against lesser sides, but if he can do it against the lesser sides in the Premier League, then I think there's infinitely more that we're going to be able to see from him. And he's very much he's a confidence player, isn't he? Like a lot of them are, but he always has to be that centre of attention, and it has to, he has to be the man. And if he can step up and do that, then it'd be he could have a very good season, but he's going to need a little bit more support than just being a 2, isn't he? In a 2-man midfield, we can't have him being overrun. So I'd like to think that, yeah, there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, definitely. One player we do keep getting asked about, and obviously it has been a kind of perennial talking point, is Mike Trezor. Now, I think there's been some kind of interesting developments with that. He posted a picture of himself topless. I was thinking of doing the same, but given the fact that we've not yet had his pre-season, I think I'll stay.
And I'm to have my tea. Yeah.
There's been the picture showed a number of scars which were perhaps consistent with some of the insight that certain people had last year about his absence. There was this talk that he'd been, very ill, and I think Scott Parker alluded to that. And lots of people speculated what it is, and a few people I've spoke to basically said, the surgery he had was pretty serious, and it's basically a miracle we saw him at all. Given the fact that Scott Parker seems to quite like him, Daz, calls him Mikey. He's always, he kept, he was part of those end of season celebrations, which had he been this bad egg that some Burnley fans like to paint Trezor as, I don't see Scott Parker being the kind of person to keep him in the camp. Do you think there's and I hate this kind of like a new signing because we used to use it all the time, didn't we, in newspapers? And managers used to use it. Do you think a Mike Trezor, fully fit, hopefully, casting off the health issues he had, again, could be that point of difference? Now, again, you might say, we've been there, he played in the Premier League, but did he get enough of a chance under Vincent Kompany to show either way? And does he perhaps be that point of difference that, as a promoted club, you're looking for?
No, he didn't get the chance in the Premier League. And no, we don't have a clue whether Mike Trezor is going to be good enough for the Premier League. But behind the scenes, you've got to have faith that Scott Parker and his team will be looking at him and assessing whether he is good enough. Clearly, the lad's had health issues. Clearly, he's had some serious issues that I don't think have been handled the best by the club. Because mixed messages have come out left, right and centre, and that's led to the fans growing a little bit of resentment towards Mike Trezor. And I think sometimes that Mike's not been the best on social media either. Yeah. So there's been a bit of toing and froing on that one. But listen, all that will be... If he turned up in the first game of the season and played a blinder and scored, put one in the top corner, the Burnley fans will be forgiven in an instant. The redemption arc is still there to be had for Mike Trezor. But I think, we talked about toss of a coin with Josh Laurent. He is a huge toss of a coin. We haven't got a clue. And we don't really have a clue what the first team's going to look like in that first game. Will Mike Trezor be in? Will Josh Brown be here? Will Jordan Bear be at the back? Or will Michael Keane be there? He'll be in goal? There's a lot of positions up for grabs in that team at the minute, and we don't have a clue what that's going to look like. And again, you've just got to put your faith that behind the scenes, that jigsaw puzzle is being put together. And if he's fit and healthy, he's shown, I think, that Mike Trezor could be an integral piece of that jigsaw. But it's a big ask.
Yeah. One of the things, Woody, this year, I mean, it doesn't help you being out in Cleveland, but we've complained for the last couple of pre-seasons that there's, we get very little chance to see pre-season. I think the game in Genk, wasn't televised. I think the game against Benfica was televised. But we've got a few fixtures this year at home, haven't we? I mean, we've got trips to Huddersfield, Stoke, and Shrewsbury, I think they are, and then a game against FC High Profile, who we believe is going to be Lazio, given the fact that Lazio appear to have announced that they're playing at Burnley, but Burnley haven't yet announced it.
Yeah.
I know kind of pre-season is what it is, and I was in the Isle of Man when we got beat by the Isle of Man. There's always a weird, we thought we were going to be brilliant under Vincent Kompany when we beat Benfica, for God's sake. But it does give the fans a bit more of a chance to get a bit of an idea of what to expect, doesn't it, going into that Tottenham game?
Of course it does. Yeah, and like you say, it doesn't really mean a whole lot, because it just means that you go off the spectrum of deep ends, doesn't it? You're either completely shit and you're going to get hammered, or you're gonna set the world on fire because you've just smashed Huddersfield 10-0. And it's a ridiculous benchmark. But there's still that little bit of excitement, isn't there? When you think about back in the good old days, the idea of Lazio turning up, on the turf. There's still a little bit of a shekel going up on the back of your neck, isn't there? It's quite a nice thought that the likes of Lazio will be turning up on a slightly musty Tuesday night for no apparent reason. But yeah, bring it on. Let's see what's going on. We like to see those formations, shapes, new players. And it's always been the case, hasn't it? So it should be quite entertaining, hopefully.
I'm sure somebody somewhere, probably Boards actually, has done some analysis of the sort of how you're doing pre-season versus how you start a season.
Yes.
But I bet the complete randomness of that poll would be that there is no answer.
Yes, exactly.
It's completely useless. Yeah. Premier League's about fitness. Premier League pre-season's about fitness, gelling players in. So you can't go off that. That said, we all want to be there, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. We'll just end with a couple of questions. Like I say, we did ask some questions. We are going to, the rest of the squad will be back for pre-season early next week with another pod where they'll answer some more questions. But I thought I'd ask this question just because I already know what I think Justin would say to this. But somebody, I can't remember who it is, somebody asked who the favourite. Oh, it was Nathan. There we go. Nathan asked, what's your favourite Burnley shirt of all time? So, Daz, let's come to you. What's your favourite Burnley shirt of all time, do you think?
I've got a couple, actually. Probably the one that always springs to mind, and I thought it was an absolute beaut, was the 2009 first Premier League season kit. There was the replica of the 60 kit.
Yeah.
Just
the Cook Oils
heavenly.
one.
It was just heavenly, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It just looked the dogs.
Even the away kit was the
white replica from that year.
The replica from the away kit from 59-60.
We did some great stuff at the club when we launched that kit with the old football Adamar designer at the time. Did some really good stuff to sort of recreate the turf moor as it was in the background with Robbie Blake wearing it in the foreground. It just came together beautifully, that kit, didn't it?
I love that one, yeah.
And the other one is the Adidas one with the 3 white stripes on it, which I loved.
Yes, P3 computers,
Yeah, that was one of my favourites as well. Always home kits, never away kits.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do like the Adidas one with the 3 stripes going down that. It seems to have come back into fashion because quite a lot of the lads were wearing it on the victory parades. But I agree with you. I don't think you can ever really fall in love with an away kit, can you, Woody?
I was going to say the 80s multi-part yellow away kit. It's a nice.
With the claret and blue on the shoulder.
Yeah, it's a nice yellow
away kit that I've got a copy of that. Yeah, I've got that. But.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to emotional attachment, doesn't it, to a particular season. I mean, I'm always fond of the 4th Division Championship one. Yeah. In fact, I was trying to drag it out today, but I think somebody's lost it in wash, so I'll be having a word with her later. Yeah, she shrunk it.
I would probably also pick 91, 93 because back in the days when we used to keep them for 2 years mentally. And probably the one straight after that, which was the 93, 94, the kind of Clarets mitre, which has the beautiful mitre collar
With the
and
yellow in
tie-ups
it.
with the
Yeah.
yellow. Yeah.
Mm.
No, the one before that. Sorry, the Wembley one. The
Okay.
yellow one was the one with the yellow and actually with the kind of almost oversized badge, I think.
Yeah.
Which was I think the first division season that we got relegated. That was pretty good. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. And then the final question, which is going to be a rhetorical one because I know you both have probably already done so. The Burnley Independent Supporters Association has said the question is, have you considered joining the Burnley FC Independent Supporters Association yet? I have paid my £5. Barry Kilby has been announced as the president of that group. We are going to speak to some of the kind of interim steering committee in an episode in a couple of weeks to find out a little bit more about that. But if you've not yet signed up and you want to find out a little bit more, then if you go to Burnley FC ISA, on Twitter, you can find out a little bit more than that. I know I was speaking to John Robertson, who's on that committee, and he was saying things have been going well so far, and they're trying to get a kind of fan-led democratic group aiming to kind of connect supporters with the club in a way that perhaps some of the mechanisms that are currently in place don't yet do. So I'm sure, like I say, lots of Burnley fans, if you've not seen that yet, do check it out. £5 to join. And yeah, a new committee will be in place when they have the AGM, so you can join that as well. Excellent. Let's leave it there then, chaps. Thank you so much for that. We are back. It felt good to be back. Like I said, we'll be back again early next week with another episode. Do keep your questions coming in. I know this season we are going to have a kind of Clarets mailbag in most episodes where we answer kind of burning questions. Lots to come from us over the summer. Lots to come from us next season. But until then, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend and up the Clarets.